what's going on.
That's a good one.
Good morning, Baton Rouge and surrounding areas. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Dr. James Gilmore, and you are listening to What's Going On. Every Tuesday and Thursday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., right here on 106.1 FM, WTQT. What's Going On, where we talk about what's going on in our nation, in our state, and right here in our own backyard, in our community. Again, thank you so much for tuning in to What's Going On. Well, I want to begin by saying there's some sad things going on in our parish. On yesterday evening, multiple gunshot injuries in our parish. We have to stop this violence. We have to find amicable ways to get along. Love is the answer, and we need to find a way to get along better here in our community. Sending prayers out to those that are victims of violence, as well as to the families and the community as a whole here in Baton Rouge, as well as in Baker, Louisiana. It's too much going on, too much violence going on, and we have to find solutions. We have to find solutions to that violence. Also, I want to remind everyone that it is election time of year. Please don't forget to register and be prepared to vote. The election will be here in less than 50 days. In less than 50 days, we must exercise our right to vote. It's very important that we get out and vote, and you must be registered. Do participate in this democracy. We have been blessed to live in a country where we have the freedom of democracy to vote, and it is a must that we take advantage of that freedom. Okay? And talking about elections, between now and November 3rd, election is November 3rd, I'll be having more guests on my show, and these guests are running for office. They are campaigning, and they are running for office. And thanks to all those that have been on my show over the past few weeks. And we're booked up through November 3rd. We have a few more empty spots. If you or someone you know is running for office and you'd like to be on my show, please send me an email at drjamesgilmorejr@gmail.com. Inbox me on Facebook. But please find a way to get to me if you would like to be on my show, to let my listening audience know who you are and what your platform is. I welcome everyone, regardless of your party, regardless of your political philosophies. I welcome everyone to What's Going On, a radio show every Tuesday and Thursday. If you are running for office, please reach out to me via email or on Facebook. Okay? Well, in our studio today, we have a candidate who is running for judge. Some of you all may have seen his signs pop up last week all across his district and even on the interstate. I had to get out and go see them for myself. It's something that in my political career I haven't seen before. A judge willing to add a little bit more to their billboards, to their campaign signs, talks about what they believe in, which is a good thing. It's a pretty good thing to know where our elected officials stand. So that's why it's important to know their platform, to know their thought processes, to know if what they believe in aligns with your beliefs. And so in the studio this morning, I have Joel Porter. I have Joel Porter with me here in the studio. Good morning, Mr. Porter. How are you?
I'm fine, Dr. Gilmore. Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining me, and thank you so much for being a part of my show this morning.
Well, thank you for inviting me here this morning. I want to thank you and your listening audience for having me here with you this morning.
Great, great, great. So, Joe, let's begin by, for folks who may not know you, tell us a little bit about who you are, where you come from, your educational background, and your work experience.
Well, my name is Joel G. Porter. I'm a lifelong resident of this parish. I grew up here. I was educated here. I've been here all my life. I attended McKinley Senior High School. I'm an alumnus of McKinley Senior High School. After I graduated from McKinley Senior High School, I then went to Southern University, in which I
gotta be able to hear you, Joe. Hold on. Speak a little closer from me.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes. Speak a little closer to the mic, Joe. We want people to hear you, Joe. I need you to speak to the mic, okay? Go ahead.
After graduating from McKinley Senior High School, I then attended Southern University, where I received a BA in philosophy from Southern University. After leaving Southern University, I went to New Orleans Baptist Theological Seminary, in which I earned a Master's of Divinity degree in Theological and Historical Studies. After that, I then attended Southern University Law Center, in which I received a Juris Doctorate degree.
Okay.
I'm also a Navy vet.
Navy vet.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I was commissioned as a JAG officer out of law school. I pastored here, a former pastor of Well Avenue Baptist Church. I've been here all my life. I've been working in this community, giving back to this community.
Where'd you go to high school at?
I went to McKinley.
McKinley
Senior High School.
Right.
I went to McKinley Elementary School, McKinley Middle School, and McKinley High School.
Okay, okay. And did you tell us where did you go to college?
I went to Southern University, correct.
Both undergrad and law school?
For undergrad and law school. I received a BA in philosophy from Southern University, and I received my Juris Doctorate degree from Southern University Law Center.
Okay. All right, so a native man. You've been here all your life?
In fact, I'm the only candidate that's seeking this particular judgeship in Division K that actually lives in the district. I'm the only candidate that lives in this district that can vote for himself. My opponents do not even live in the district.
Okay, so hold on, Joe. Let me clarify this. So what you're saying is you don't have to live in your district to vote? Is that the law doesn't require a person to live in their district?
You must live in the district in order to vote for yourself. My opponents cannot even vote for themselves. One of my opponents lives off of Flannery Road. The other one lives in Baker. Neither one of them can vote for themselves.
Oh.
I actually live in South Baton Rouge. I live in the same house I grew up in. And the reason I still live in the community, I thought that it was important, James, Dr. Gilmore, that young black men and black women see a professional, see a black person get up in the morning, go to work. I felt I needed to be a role model for young black men and young black women. So I stayed in the community.
Okay. Wow. I didn't realize that your opponents didn't live in the district, but okay. So let's talk about your career as a lawyer. What made you want to become a lawyer, first of all, and how has your career in law been?
Let me say this, James. First of all, I listened with a certain degree of interest on last.
You're messing up the show. I need you to get.
I listened.
Can you hold the microphone? I can't mess up the show. I need you to have this microphone close to your mouth. Yeah. Okay.
On last Tuesday,
you go, Joe.
I listened to your program with a very attentively, and my opponent on multiple occasions said that he was the most qualified. Well, just because you say you're the most qualified doesn't make you the most qualified. I am, without a shadow of a doubt, the absolute most qualified person seeking this particular judgeship. No question about it.
And you're basing that off of your...
I've been practicing law for 28 years.
Okay.
I fought for women's rights, seniors' rights, children's rights, civil rights. I fought for justice and equality for my people in this community. I've done civil rights. So there's no way that my opponent can say that he's the most qualified. He could not even name one case that he ever represented a person in this parish that even showed up in the paper.
So let's talk about you. Okay?
Let's talk about me.
Yeah, let's talk about you. Yes, your opponent was on the show, but let's talk about you. Tell us about, and I asked your opponent this question, tell us about one of your most memorable cases over your career, or two over your career, that you're most proud of in your fights for justice.
One of the most memorable cases that really affected me in a deeply emotional way, a former NBA player by the name of Mark Young was accused of murder and attempted murder. He had been locked up for 2 years. The judge would not even allow him to bond out. And of course, that was a black judge, by the way. A man that was only accused, he was totally innocent. I got involved in this case. We tried his case, and he was acquitted within 2 hours. Within 2 hours. The prosecutor submitted 267 pieces of evidence. But the jury found him not guilty, and he was not guilty because he did not commit the offense. And that touched me in a deeply emotional.
He already served 2 years?
He served 2 years of his life, was not given a bond, was not allowed out of jail, and he was only accused. He never did anything.
Why is that in our judicial system, in our criminal justice system, someone that served can be in jail for 2 years, okay, not be able to bond out, and then be found innocent?
Well, it happens. It happens every day. First of all, with a capital offense, and this was not a capital offense. Capital people who are accused or charged with or indicted for first-degree murder, they are not permitted to have a bond. Okay, this young man was accused of indicted on second-degree murder, which he should have had a bond, but he was not permitted to bond out. He either did not have the money or his parents did not have the money. And that's why we need bail reform so much, because what we do, we created a system, a classification of citizens, the haves and the have-not. If you're rich, if you can make a high bond, you are able to get out. If you're poor, you're gonna stay in that stinking jail and rot.
I noticed on your platform, your Porter plan is what you call it. You talk about bail reform. That's something that you believe in and that you're going to help work towards?
Absolutely. I don't believe that there should be bail for any non-violent offender. Okay.
So Porter doesn't believe there should be bail for any non-violent offender.
Well, first of all, the reason that they have bail is to try to ensure that you will return to court on your court date. There is no studies, there's no evidence that suggests that just because someone has a bond or a bail, that they are going to return to court. There's no evidence of proving that. So that's a fallacy. And the other thing about, I was talking about the classification of citizens that this bail system creates, the haves and the have-not.
Right.
So often I've seen parents and grandparents put up their houses and their lands and all of their income to try to get their loved one out of jail. It takes stripped money and take money out of the black community. We must do something to end that suction of money or wealth out of our community.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right, Attorney Porter. I know plenty of people that have put up their assets to help bail their loved one or family member out of jail, and it definitely strips assets from our community. How do we change bail reform, though? How do you plan on approaching this? Being a judge, I've read your platform, and a lot of it is public policy. And so obviously that some of these things are done through the legislature, not through the judicial branch of government. So how do you as a judge plan on helping to influence things like bail reform when it's part of the legislative branch of government?
Well, while it is a part of the legislative branch, every year the Supreme Court, they have a legislative initiative that they go down to the legislature or they talk to their legislators and say, look, we would like these particular laws enacted. I can go to my local legislator.
You can be an advocate.
I can be an advocate and say, look, here's some reform, here's some initiatives that we really need to have enacted. And we can put pressure on our legislator to enact certain laws to change certain criminal reform. They'll make certain criminal reforms.
Okay, what else in this Porter plan that I've heard about and read a little bit about on your push card? What else in this Porter plan do you have as part of your platform for judge?
I believe that we need to have.
Closer to the mic.
I believe that we need to have legislature enacted that will eliminate this habitual offender statute. Now, what the habitual offender statute allows, what it does, it allows prosecutors to seek harsher or stiffer sentences or an extended period of time for certain defendants who have past convictions, okay? And what this is creating, this has added to the mass incarceration of black people and brown people. And we must eliminate that statute. I mean, I've seen where a person may have gotten 2 felony convictions and they get another conviction and they are sentenced to jail for life. And this started sometime back with the 1984 crime bill that was pushed by Bill Clinton, which added 1.5 million people to the rolls of our prison system. We must stop this institutionalization, this institutionalized slavery, because that's what it is. It's another form of enslaving black and brown people.
Wow. So the Porter plan, you're pretty hot this morning. You're talking about bail reform as well as habitual offender reform in our judicial system here. You're very passionate about these things you're speaking about. So passionate about them. Again, as I opened up, you have signs all across this city on the interstate.
I do.
Your signs read what? Black Lives Matter?
Black Lives Matter, stop racial injustice, stop police brutality.
What made you do that? Because it's a buzz around town because no one else sign says that. Everyone else sign says, vote for me. Everyone else sign says, has a slogan on it. What made you put that message on your billboards?
Because I see the damage, the devastation that the criminal justice system has on our communities. I've seen how black and brown people don't get justice when they go to court.
Because you've been there in the courtroom for a number of years.
For 28 years I've been there. I've watched white judges, some white judges, talk to black and brown people in the most humiliating way possible, designed to rob them of their dignity and humanity. We must stop this kind of racism, both in the criminal justice system as well as on the judiciary. We must strip it. The criminal justice system should not be used as a whipping tool. It should not be used to enslave black and brown people as is being used today.
You've used the terms black and brown. You are definitely making your campaign, at least here on my show, about the plight of black and brown people.
That is correct, I am. Because it is about black and brown people, because black and brown people so often are denied those basic civil rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. You can't pursue liberty and happiness when there are state-sponsored killings of black and brown people done at the hand of law enforcement. That's state-sponsored genocide. Our government is state-sponsoring killing of our people, and it must stop.
Wow. So let's talk about that issue.
Let's talk about it.
A lot of black and brown folk, innocent folk, have been murdered at the hands of police.
Absolutely. Every day.
What do we need to do? Because we live in a world right now where there's a lot of high levels of hate. The president that we currently have has fostered a lot of that, whether he wants to admit it or not.
Well, our president is a bigot. He's a racist.
Okay. Wow.
I mean,
call it like it is.
Well, on last Tuesday, you asked my opponent about Donald Trump. There were some recent revelations about the Bob Woodruff book that had come out, and he refused to even criticize Donald Trump. He said he was his commander-in-chief.
Yeah, because he's in the military.
Yeah,
you're in the military also, right?
That is correct. If you look at your national news, you see generals criticizing the president every single day. Just because you were in the military does not mean that you can't criticize the commander-in-chief. He's a racist, he's a criminal, he's a misogynist, he's everything evil in society. And if you can criticize someone that's doing wrong, something's wrong with that. Yet you're seeking a black judgeship, and you're not willing to call this man a criminal.
Wow.
Or a racist.
Okay. So you're quite comfortable with calling our president a criminal and a racist.
If it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
So let's talk about it. How do we change this tide of black and brown people being murdered at the hands of police officers?
Well, first of all, you can't solve the problem. First of all, you can't solve the problem until you understand the problem.
Okay.
The problem that we have with white law enforcement officers killing black and brown people is once again, a racial problem. It's racism. When white society use blackness as a proxy. See, what's required for a cop to exercise or to use deadly force? They must reasonably believe that their lives are in danger or that they are threatened. Okay. There's something about black people, their color, and brown people with their color, that triggers this sense of threat, this sense of fear, unreasonably so, in the minds of certain police officers, and mainly white police officers. And when they approach or deal with a black or brown person, they already have this sense of fear, of dread, of threat, and they use that to murder our people.
So how do they get on our police forces?
Well,
that's the problem.
That is a major problem. And you can't weed that out. The entire system needs to be changed. Perhaps, maybe we should have only black officers policing black people or our black communities. Perhaps we need to create another arm of the criminal justice system that deal only with police brutality and excessive force and deadly force cases. We need to change our whole system. Perhaps someone needs to file a complaint, a lawsuit against the American government with the world's court for genociding of its people.
Powerful recommendations. Aren't many people think like you?
Oh, I doubt it. I doubt it. And if they think like me, they're afraid to voice it.
Right. Especially when they're on the ballot for office.
Well, you would think that when you're running for office, that you should be transparent.
Very much so.
That people should know. People should know who you are, what you stand for, what you're about. You shouldn't be seeking an office with a hidden agenda. People should be able to look at you. They should be able to look at your platform and know what you're about. Let me tell you what I do know, James.
What do you know?
I'm a black man. My mother was black. My father was black. I live in a black community. I go to sleep black and I wake up black. I will never forget my black people. And anybody, black, brown, or whatever color you are, you're going to find justice in my court. You're going to be respected. You will not be disrespected in my court.
Because my opponent, I mean your opponent, not mine. You got me all discombobulated here with all this serious talk. He did mention that some judges, and you even said it today, they don't treat people well in their courtroom. How do you plan on being the judge? What type of judge will you be?
I will be a judge that understands the condition that causes the types of crimes that we see our people get involved in.
So are you saying you're going to be soft on crime?
I'm saying that I'm going to understand our plight in this society. I will listen to the facts, I will weigh the evidence, and I will make a ruling accordingly. But I will do it also with an understanding of the condition of black and brown people in this society.
So you're saying that as judge, you will do it with that understanding?
Absolutely.
Of where black and brown people are in this society?
Absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt about it.
And why do you think it's important that a judge has that perspective?
Well, if you don't understand that, I think you lose sight, you lose understanding. See, you must understand where the condition that caused certain offenders. 81% of those incarcerated right now are nonviolent offenders. You have people who have been denied certain rights in society, and they're out there, they may be selling a rock of cocaine, trying to make it because they can't pay their bills or because they can't take care of their family. You should understand that you shouldn't lock someone up for that type of behavior. Maybe you should try to get him an education, or find him a job, or direct him to those alternatives in societies to assist them, rather than just locking up. You would think that you would rather educate a person rather than incarcerate a person, especially nonviolent offenders. Look, we want the same thing that everybody else wants. We want safer communities. We want safer neighborhoods. We want safer parks for our kids to play in. We don't like crime in our communities either.
Well, I have Joel Porter here on my show this morning, and he's saying a lot about his platform. He's running for judge. He's talking about bail reform. He's talking about being a judge that has a perspective and understanding of where black and brown people are today. He's talking about legislation and advocating for legislation that eliminates the habitual offender laws. He's talking about police violence and brutality and murder on innocent Americans. I have Joel Porter here on my show today talking about some things I haven't really heard from anyone else.
We should eliminate no-knock warrants.
Breonna Taylor, say her name.
Breonna Taylor was murdered in her own house on a no-knock warrant.
And you want no-knock warrants gone?
I want them totally eradicated, eliminated, and no judge should sign a no-knock warrant. Two reasons.
Wait.
Not
no
only
order is saying no judge, and as a judge,
I will not sign a no-knock warrant. Period. For two reasons. First of all, First of all, it's to protect the public, and it's protect the officer. If someone comes in and kicking down someone's door, they don't know who's out there. And someone could just shoot somebody, not knowing that this is a law enforcement officer, and get killed. But also for innocent persons like Breonna Taylor, who was killed sleeping in her own house. We should not have no-knock warrants in Louisiana, period. They are a danger to the public, and they are a danger to law enforcement.
Also,
another thing we should eliminate. We should have legislation where when law enforcement officers confiscate or seize drug money or monies that are the fruit of drug trafficking, rather than that money going to prosecutors and to law enforcement, Why are those monies not given back to the communities, those black inner city communities that are most affected by drug offenses? We could have pre-qualified community-based organization that can go into these communities and help those communities.
So what do you say to law enforcement that says that they need that revenue?
That money it incentivizes them to over-police black communities and black people. Their money should come from the legislature. It should come from other sources, but not from drug offenses, period. It's just like putting a law enforcement officer on administrative leave when he just murdered someone. I mean, you are incentivizing that officer or police officers to go and murder other black people. That's what you're doing. You're incentivizing them.
So wait, let me go back now, because you're saying a lot here, Joe. So what you're saying is that as judge, because a lot of things, as I stated before, may not be within your direct control as a judge. But you're saying that you're not just going to judge from the bench, but you're going to judge from the community.
Absolutely.
You're going to be an advocate for things.
I will absolutely.
And so what you just told me is that you want money seized in drug trafficking cases to then go back to nonprofit and community-based organizations to serve that community.
Absolutely.
Impacted by the drug trafficking.
Absolutely. Another thing, James.
Have you talked with any of our legislators? Because a lot of the things that you have here, they need to hear and know. They need to know what you're saying because they make the laws. Have you had the opportunity to meet with any of our legislators? Or what do you think their thoughts will be?
Well, I don't know what their thoughts will be, James. But I'm certainly willing to have that conversation with any legislator. I'm willing to give them a legislative initiative with these particular reforms and laws that I think need to be enacted. Another thing, James, that ruined a lot of our black men and our black women is that when law enforcement officers go out there and name someone a suspect, that should not be permitted. That you go out, name someone a suspect without having substantial evidence showing that they participated in a crime. You could defame someone, ruin their life. I know of an incident in the Derek Todd Lee case where law enforcement went out, named someone a suspect. This individual was totally innocent, ruined this man's life such that he ended up leaving this city because of it.
Wow.
We should have laws on the books that makes it illegal for law enforcement to label someone.
So what do they label them? What? Of course, law enforcement is going to say, well, what are we supposed to label someone? What are you suggesting?
You should label anything.
Okay.
You should investigate.
Because what you're saying is that once they're labeled a suspect, the media takes control. The narrative is then set, and the public then has a perception.
That is correct. You should never name someone a suspect without having substantial. Now the word substantial will have to be defined legislative-wise, okay, in the law. But it should be illegal for someone to go out and ruin someone's life, defame someone by calling them a suspect or a person of interest. They need to find another term or not call them anything. Say that you are investigating the crime. Say that you are looking at people, but you don't have to go out and name somebody a suspect or a person of interest.
So let's talk about this, if you don't mind, and we don't have to talk about whatever you don't want to talk about.
Okay.
You were at one time labeled a suspect, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 30 years ago, my wife was killed while I was at work. And this is 30 years ago, in 1985.
Sorry to hear that.
In 2012, October of 2012, myself along with Ron Johnson filed a...
Are you okay with mentioning names throughout?
I am.
Okay.
I mean, this is a matter of public. This is a matter of public.
All right, go ahead.
We filed a voting rights lawsuit so we can get another black city judgeship.
Did you win?
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
4 months after that lawsuit was filed, I was pulled over on the interstate wherein this homicide investigator wanted to get my DNA. I said, well, why you just didn't pick up the phone and call me? You didn't have to pull me over and try to embarrass me. But this was what they were trying to do, James. They were trying to whip me into compliance, or whatever you want to call it. They got my DNA. A month later, a couple of months later, they found the DNA of an unknown male on my wife. Rather than coming out and telling the public that, look, oh, Mr. Porter is not a suspect, we found the DNA of an unknown male on his wife. They continued this shenanigans because what happened? Because then I turned around and sued them for violating both my civil rights and constitutional rights. Eventually, I was cleared, I was exonerated, but yet people in this community not even aware of that. They allowed this case to go unresolved for 30 years. And what happens, the rumor mongering starts in a community. And then people start believing those rumors and fail to look at the evidence. I was at work, my supervisor said I was at work. I was an innocent man being falsely investigated for something I never did. Now we have people in this community that will say some of the most horrible things about me when I was an innocent person that suffered the loss of the love of my life. And it's very hurtful when I hear people saying those kinds of things. And that's why I say we have to change the laws in this city and in this country.
Mr. Porter, I have someone that just posted on Facebook saying this is good. It's just as good as for me, Jarek, as it is for my listening audience. Again, sorry about the murder and loss of your wife, and very sorry that you had to go through so much being a suspect when the entire time sounds like they had the evidence that you weren't even.
They had the evidence and they hid the evidence.
Wow.
Let's talk about some more reforms. I think we need to fight to eliminate judicial immunity as well. I think when judges make mistakes that affects one's life or liberty or property interest, that judge should be sued or should have the right to be sued. I don't think prosecutors should be immune from lawsuit. We have prosecutorial immunity. When they hide evidence, when they intentionally have people indicted and convicted of crimes, they should be able to be sued as well. Maybe that would make them pay more attention and make them more circumspect before they go out. And that's why we have so many innocent people in jail. We have the Innocent Project.
Yes.
And every month or two.
Every month they're announcing someone that has served decades and were innocent.
Exactly. Another thing, James, another area.
And so what you're saying is that once they get out, no one can be sued. No judge.
They have prosecutorial immunity.
Wow.
They have judicial immunity where you can't sue the judge. I want that change. Maybe that would make judges pay more attention, read the plea.
It's accountability.
Everybody should be held accountable for their action. Another thing, James, when someone is charged with an offense, and
someone says, "May God continue to bless you. You have quite a story. I pray your wife's murderer is found one day." Someone just posted it. I wanted to read that because that was a touching story, and it's a story that we're talking about the Innocent Project. You could have went to jail for that.
Absolutely. I've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars defending myself. I've spent $50,000 hiring DNA experts to look at the evidence.
And you were blessed to have those assets because many black and brown, as you say, don't have money to do that.
And that's why they spend decades in jail. And that's why the Innocent Project is so important to what we do.
Woo! Brother Porter, this is...
Let me speak about another area of reform.
Because so far you've talked about, and I'm reading your platform. And by the way, I see that you're an Alpha, Shiloh Missionary Baptist Church, commissioned JAG officer, former pastor of Weller Avenue Baptist Church, and United States veteran. Just some things I wanted to read that I didn't know about you that I wanted to read out. So far on your platform, you've talked about eliminating qualified immunity.
And basically that says that, you know, when a police officer feel brutalize or use excessive force or kill someone, they are immune from liability, personal liability.
Right, right. And you want that gone.
I want that gone. I also
Do
want.
you think police officers would do better if they knew that they could be sued?
Absolutely, they would.
It's all about accountability.
It's about accountability.
And it's interesting that our judicial system, and again, no offense to, I don't need all my friends who are lawyers and judges who are experts, don't get offended, but it's interesting how the judicial system seems to hold us accountable for our actions, but they
don't want to be held accountable for their actions. Correct.
Absolutely.
Correct. Another thing, James, another reform that I would like to see, or another law that I would like to see enacted, is when a person is charged with an offense and they are acquitted of that offense or the charges are dropped, they should be compensated for not only the damages, for their attorney fees as well.
Because it's quite expensive
and that should come
it's
out
quite
of,
expensive to defend yourself nowadays.
and that should come out of the prosecutor's budget.
Wow.
We're talking about accountability right now. You go out, you know you don't have the evidence, you charge or indict someone, you either drop
and that person has to go out and spend money on lawyers.
Spend money on lawyers. The DA's office should be required to take that money and reimburse that individual for their attorney fees, for their out-of-pocket attorney fees. Yes, they should.
So what Joe Porter's platform is basically saying, and I'm not here to put words in your mouth, Attorney Porter, but what you're saying is that you want to create a system that is fair, that is just, but that you also, as judge, don't mind being held accountable for bad actions.
I expect to be held accountable. I think everybody in society should be held accountable for bad action. Another thing, James, and what I'd really like to see done, the American Association of Physicians and the American College of Physicians said that racism and police brutality is the greatest threat to black people and the black community.
And who was that said that? I like to cite my sources.
That's this was about a month or two ago.
Okay.
The American Association of Physicians and the American College of Physicians, they issued a joint statement about a month or two ago where they said that police brutality and racism was an existential threat to the black community, to black and brown people. One of the things that need to happen, since we're talking about reform, I'd like to see a study, a commission done, where we bring in legal experts from all over the country to look at our criminal justice system, our judiciary, and identify those areas that are racist, where we identify the disparities and the inequities within our criminal justice system. Because you can't enact policy changes without identifying those areas that need to be changed.
Well, that's done all the time. I mean, I work in public policy. That's done all the time with the legislature. If you want to study an issue, to resolve an issue, that hasn't been done here locally in our judiciary?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Otherwise, you would not be seeing the disparities in sentencing. You would not be seeing the disparities with bonds. You would not be seeing the disparities on how black and brown people are treated when they come to court. We need that study done so legislators can go out and enact laws to change the system. We need to eradicate and eliminate racism out of the criminal justice system and off of the judiciary.
This is his platform, you all. Eliminating racism out of the judiciary and the criminal justice system. If you haven't read his platform, I'm sure he's going to give his social media information and other things out. I'm here reading his push card. Joe Porter is with me this morning, and he's talking about fixing a lot of the inequities in the judiciary system. Many of these things are controlled by our legislature, and he's saying basically that he's going to be an advocate. He's just not going to judge from the bench. Sounds like you're trying to, eliminate unfair and unjust opportunities for brown and black folks to even come into your courtroom?
I'm trying to make sure that we have a fairer, more equitable system for all people.
All people.
Because when one area of society is affected, it affects all of us, whether we want to eliminate, whether we want to agree with that or not.
You're right about that.
The reason that we're having protest activities in the street all over the nation is because of the inequities. It's because of the killing of black and brown people.
And it impacts everyone.
Rather than lynching them on a tree, we're now shooting them in the back. Like the young man was shot 7 times in the back for nothing. We saw on the television over the weekend where these 2 cops beating a young black male to death because he questioned, why are you stopping you? Why do you want to see my ID when I'm only a passenger in the car? Another thing that we need to change, Mr. Gilmore, is the fact that, Dr. Gilmore, I'm sorry, is the fact that when a cop is found to have brutalized an individual without cause or have used excessive force, we should have laws that make it illegal for any other law enforcement agency to hire that cop. Because what's happening now, they're jumping from one, they get disciplined with one particular law enforcement agency, then they go get hired in another city. We should not allow that to happen. Another thing that needs to happen, Dr. Gilmore, in our contract that the city has with the police union, there's a clause in there that should not be in there. There is an indemnification clause, meaning that the city contracts with the police union to hold them harmless, or hold police officers harmless for their tortious act. When they go out there and beat or brutalize an individual, the city says, we're going to hold you harmless. We're going to pay for that.
Wow.
That incentivizes bad behavior. That should be stripped out of this contract that the city of Baton Rouge has with law enforcement. That need to go. And thank God that the Mayor Brum, has done a wonderful job, along with Chief Murphy Paul, have done a wonderful job in trying to bring about those reforms that are necessary for our people to be treated fairly in this society.
And I know.
And I want to commend Mayor Brum, and I absolutely want to.
Someone says this is very informative. People are really liking what you're saying. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Commend Mayor Brum.
And I absolutely want to commend Chief Murphy Paul. Now, one of the problems that Chief Paul has.
And by the way, let me do a disclaimer right here. Joe Porter, and Attorney Joe Porter, is running for judge. But if you're tuning in and you're wondering, what is all this other policy and philosophy and reform? Why is he talking about this and that? Oh, that doesn't apply to a judge. What he's saying is that this applies to, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, you can, but this applies to systematic change, to making things better across the entire judiciary and criminal justice system. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
That it's more, that you want to be more than just a judge. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. But see, a judge.
Tell me, what is a judge? In your eyes, what's a judge? Should be and should do.
Let me tell you this.
Okay.
A judge is not as my opponent analogized. A judge is not.
I see you have no problem. I thank you for listening to my show. I didn't know you listened to my show, but I see you have no problem acknowledging the differences in you and your opponent, which is completely okay. This is my show, but go ahead.
A judge is not just an umpire that calls balls and strikes.
Okay.
That's not what a judge does.
A judge shouldn't be just one to make decisions in the courtroom.
A judge listens to evidence. A judge make decisions concerning pleadings and motions. A judge weighs the evidence. It's a whole lot that a judge does other than calling balls and strikes.
Okay.
Let me assure you of that. A judge affects life and liberty interests. A judge can decide whether someone is sent to is sentenced to death or sentenced to prison forever. A judge decides whether somebody can take your house or take your wealth because you were involved in an accident.
So what you're saying is we as the voting population need to really take these judgeships much more seriously.
Absolutely.
Because I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm speaking for myself, and I'm a political activist and a political scientist. I have never been to court. Haven't really been engaged in our criminal justice system. I pay my tickets. Never had to go to court for a ticket. Never been sued. And so I read about these experiences, these unjust experiences. I hear about the trauma that people go through the criminal justice system, but I've never lived it.
I understand.
And so hearing that you've lived it,
oh, absolutely,
and hearing that you not only personally, but you've lived it as an attorney for
28 years.
28 years. I feel and support and agree that these changes are necessary.
James, let me say something. We were talking about racism, how systemic racism is throughout the entire system, and that's what systemic means, meaning that it exists throughout the system. Mm-hmm. There are some courts that I go in and I feel like just a lawyer, your average lawyer. But then there are some courts that I go into and I'm made to feel like a black lawyer.
Wow.
I'm not listened to, or I'm cut off, or I'm shut down, or you don't want to hear my argument, or I'm treated, or the opposing lawyer is treated in a better way than I am. Mm-hmm. We need to eliminate that kind of foolishness from the judiciary, period. It should be a place where all persons, regardless of your race, color, sexuality, creed, can come in and be treated equally and with dignity and respect.
Sherilyn Jackson Miles says also true. She's running for judge out in Ascension Parish. And forgive me if I said it wrong. I think she's running the Ascension Parish. She's also a friend of mine. She said also true.
Thank you, Attorney Miles.
Attorney Porter. Elections November 3rd. Early voting is October 20th to 27th. We have about 5 more minutes left on the show. What message would you like to close out with to our listening audience? I must say that this has been a very interesting show. It's been very educating for me. In all my years of politics, I must say that I have not met anyone as bold as you in your platform. I like that you are direct about where you stand on these issues. I like that you are fearless about what you're saying and what you're going to do. But do you think this will get you elected? Do you think that our society is ready for Joe Porter on the bench?
I think society is ready for Joe Porter. Whether or not I'm elected or not, mm-hmm. that I don't know. Unfortunately, in our communities, we have the so-called political power brokers that a lot of times...
Because what you're saying here threatens a lot of people. This Absolutely. Is all justice. This is all what I believe American democracy should be about, what you have on this platform.
Absolutely.
But I also live in a real political life, and I know that when you speak about the things you've talked about on my show, you make people unhappy. You may even make an enemy or two.
And that's fine.
And that's fine while running for office.
I have no problem with enemies. I mean, look, I make my own money. I'm not owned.
Unbought and unbossed.
Unbought, unpaid for, financing my own campaign.
Oh, you really?
I mean, I think the people of this district, of this community, should pull the campaign finance reports and see who's giving to who. I'm financing my own campaign.
And so what you're saying, that you could stand on these beliefs, because anybody that calls you to say you're saying the wrong thing, you're not doing what we want you to do, you can say, I'm standing on my own merit.
Once again, I'm financing my own campaign. I haven't asked anyone for a dollar, unlike my opponent.
Your district.
My district.
What do you think the people in your district, give us the boundaries of your district. What district do you represent? What do you represent?
The district starts down by LSU, covers South Baton Rouge, picks up Fairfield,
Fairfield,
Park, Bush Young, Banks.
Glen That's where I grew up at. Glen Oaks.
All the way to Scotlandville. Pick up Scotlandville.
So, do you believe the people in your district? Because I know what I believe. That this platform that you have is one that they believe in.
The people in my district or in the Division K are the ones that's most affected by this racial injustice in our criminal justice system. If anybody should want to change, it should be the citizens of that district. And if the citizens of that district are sick and tired of being sick and tired of how they are treated in the criminal justice system, they should, without a question, vote for me. Number 77 on your ballot. Joel Porter, because your life really does matter.
And you have that on your platform.
My platform.
You have that on your push card. Your life matters.
On my theme of this campaign is about social justice. It's about the lives of the people that I will be called upon to serve. The same people that I've been serving for my entire life. As a pastor, I've mentored black and brown men and women. I've tried to keep them. Unlike my opponent, who's a prosecutor locking black and brown people up in New Orleans, he tried not to talk about that.
Let's talk about Joe Porter. Let's not talk about your opponent.
Okay.
That's why I don't take calls in on the show. I like folks to talk about their platform, not necessarily others. But go ahead.
But if the citizens of this district cares about their life, if their lives really matter, they will vote for me. They will find justice. They will be treated fairly and equitably in my courtroom. They will not be disrespected. They will have a sense of dignity and respect, and they will feel good about their personhood when they leave out of my court.
Well, you heard it here. I feel very privileged to have had the opportunity to interview Joe Porter, who's running for judge. I think he said from South Baton Rouge to Glen Oaks to Eden Park to Scotlandville. I would highly advise folks to listen to this show and share this show. He talks about all types of issues. Thank you so much, Joe Porter.
One last thing, I can be found on Facebook.
Okay, you're on Facebook?
At Elect Joel Porter. Elect Joel G. Porter. I'm on Facebook.
Okay.
I have a website. I don't know the web address.
Okay, gotcha.
But they absolutely can call me at 225-978-1955. Once again, 225-978-1955.
978-1955. Joe Porter said give him a call if you have any questions about his platform. And again, thank you so much, Attorney Porter, for being on my show this morning. And best of luck in your campaign.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Gilmore, for having me here.
All right. Listening audience, again, thank you so much for tuning in to what's going on right here every Tuesday and Thursday, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., 106.1 FM, WTQT. Again, my name is Dr. James Gilmore, and may you have a fantastic rest of your day. Take care.
How did you think of things,